Why are more than twice as many women running for Congress this year than ran in 2016? These women are fighting to ensure their voices are heard, as they often feel underrepresented across the country, as this map illustrates the big picture for you. Women in both chambers of Congress, women in the U.S. House, women in the Senate, and no women in the 114th Congress. Let's talk to these candidates. Roza Calderon introduces herself as scientist, activist, small business owner, mother, and refugee. She is the Democratic candidate for California's 4th Congressional District. And Sarah Smith introduces herself as a young working woman who worries about my health care, my student loans, and my economic future. She is a candidate in the Democratic primary race for Washington State's 9th District. Welcome both, and thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Roza, according to the map on your website, the 4th California District includes several of the more scenic places in the USA, but does not seem to include your opponent's residence. Does Rep. Tom McClintock not live in the district he reps?
Absolutely. He does not live in the district, so he can't even vote for himself come this election. And as close as we're going to get to who's going to win, he's going to need his vote to count, I think.
How is he allowed to run?
You know, it's not against the law in Congress. As long as you live in the state that you try to represent, you are okay to run. And unfortunately, in my district, not only is he someone who has never lived in the district, but we also have people who have just moved to the district to run as well.
Well, this may be
completely permissible under the law.
Yeah, this may be news to a lot of voters there. Now, Sarah Smith, you are challenging Congressman Adam Smith, whose wife's name is also Sarah, and you're yes. primarying a fellow Dem. That's a lot for voters to sort out. How has Rep. Smith failed Washington State Democrats?
Representative Smith he's afraid to take a chance. He's afraid to stand up for anything. He toes the party line. He's afraid to take bold stances. And in a district that's as dark blue as our district is, we swung about 72% for Bernie Sanders in the caucusing in Washington. We should expect more and demand more of our representatives. We shouldn't just wait for them to take up the mantle of pushing for single-payer Medicare for all after 13 years since its introduction. This is the first year he's co-sponsored it, and it's also the first year he's had a progressive challenger that has a strong campaign. So I think that we can do better, we should do better, and we must do better if we want to be better.
Was he a super delegate for Hillary Clinton?
Yes, he was. Despite the fact that the district caucused 72% for Bernie Sanders, he super delegated for Hillary Clinton.
There's a lot of that going on. Roza and Sarah, in that order, do I overstate Trump backlash as a big reason why so many women are running?
No, I think that's a right statement. You know, for me, the community asked me to run. And as a female, it takes a little bit longer for you to realize that you are able to lead. But I just couldn't stand by and continue seeing what was going on. Some of the first protests that you saw in Washington, D.C. were actually right at the Trump Tower, right after the election happened. And I was one of the people marching there with my daughter, and not knowing what kind of future I could offer her with someone in presidency like Trump, I knew that I had to do something more.
How about it, Sarah? Gender a big factor?
I think it is. I think we're tired of hearing ourselves be talked about the way Trump talks about women. Yeah. We're tired of hearing our rights be talked about the way the conservatives talk about our rights. We're sick and tired of it, and we're done rolling over. And you see it with the Me Too movement right now. You see it with the volume of women running for Congress. We're done rolling over. We're done waiting for someone else to take up the mantle and fix our problems. Women are waking up and realizing that we are the ones who can fix our problems together. And so we're linking arms, we're running for Congress, and we're seizing our power back.
You are both outspoken advocates of Medicare for all, and that is pretty much the opposite of what Roza's opponent recommends.
Restore to individuals the financial means and the wide range of choices to put their families back in charge of their own health care. You know, for example, instead of all of the tax advantages we give to companies to impose plans on their employees, why don't we give those same tax advantages to the employees so they can go out and choose the plan that best meets their own needs, that they can take from job to job, and that they can fire if it no longer serves their needs.
Roza, I am on Medicare, and I love it. The system processed over 1 billion claims last year. But do the numbers work? Would we be better off if people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, people too young to enroll under the present system, could buy into Medicare?
Well, you know, the program itself, as it stands, there's going to be a lot of not just expansion, but we're going to have to strengthen the program so that it works for every single person. Medicare itself is not perfect, but it is our form and our very successful form of single payer that we've been under for quite some time. There has been a few Medicare expansions in the last few decades, and they have worked miraculously. You know, one of the things that most people have fought for to maintain as part of the ACA was the Medicare expansion. And that's what people were calling the representatives for, regardless if they were Republican or if they were Democrat. Unfortunately for McClintock, this is something that he's going to have to get on board with. He wants to expand competition in the market, but that hasn't worked. In fact, that just gives more power to healthcare and pharmaceutical companies to really take people for everything that they have. And that is not okay with me. And under his plan to repeal the ACA, he wanted to take Medicare away from over 70,000 of his constituents here in District 4.
Sarah, if elected, you would be one of the younger members of Congress. Is health care a pickle for people your age?
Absolutely it is. So when I was in college, actually, I didn't have health care. I had to sign on for student health care, and it cost somewhere between $2,000 to $5,000 per semester for me to be on a college plan. Yes, it's extremely expensive. And I have a lot of friends, especially the way that the economy is for workers right now. Most of the people in my age group, in my age bracket, and it's going to happen with the next upcoming generation too, are working 2 to 3 jobs, usually in hospitality or in the restaurant business, where they don't even have the ability to sign up for health care. Or if they do, it's $600 a month or more. And they just can't afford that, especially with wages being stagnant or dropping in some areas. People can't afford to have health care, so they're just foregoing it. And they're waiting on health problems. We're sitting on health problems until they become major crises. Single payer polls over 60%, and it's regardless of Democrat or Republican, it's regardless of age group, it's over 60% approval for a single payer Medicare for all system. That's what we need to adopt. And we need representatives in office that are not just willing to support it, but that are willing to stand up and put everything on the line to fight for it. And that's what I want to do in Congress for people in my generation and generations to come after mine.
Well, this is what Bernie was preaching out last time. You're both waging ambitious challenges to better funded opponents, and you've both sworn off PAC money. Roza, how do you compete?
You know, it's one of the questions that we get constantly, but unfortunately, when I'm asked how much money do you have, my rebuttal is, what does the money actually buy you? You know, if you look at any of the FECs by any of these huge establishment candidates that are running, you'll see that they have a lot of consultants, a lot of independent expenditures, and a lot of that money, we have zero idea what it actually produced for them. So what we have focused on is making sure that we are knocking on doors, that we're making phone calls. And luckily, you know, we started doing this back in September of last year. We are still leading with name recognition and having 1/10 of what the leading candidate in terms of money has in this district. So I think that the footwork, it says quite a bit in how we're going to overcome money in politics. And it's actually one of the things that has helped me bridge relationships with people from other parties. If it's one thing that we can all get behind is getting money out of politics. My stance on this is I'm going into Congress on a clean slate, not owing a lobbying firm or a corporation one single favor. My entire debt is to the people who put me in office.
Well, that message sure worked for President Trump last time. Sarah, shoe leather and social media, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think Rosa's exactly spot on. The wave of the future is swearing off corporate money and PAC money. People are tired of making jokes about how congressmen should wear NASCAR badge or NASCAR style jackets where they have to have their donors on the sleeves. People are tired of bought and paid for seats and bought and paid for politicians. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you have $1 million or $20. It matters how many votes you get. And those dollars can't vote. What's important is that we're out in the streets, we have volunteer teams, we're on track to knock about 20,000 doors before the primary season up here. We're touching voters, we're talking to people. Because when everything's said and done, corporate money, how big your war chest is, none of that matters. What matters is that you've talked to people and convinced people you're the right person to represent them. Yeah. And that's far more important to me than funds and what's sitting in my bank account.
Yeah, recently, in recent elections, we've witnessed the failure of the 30-second TV spot and the value of eye contact, pressing the flesh. Hey, I got just about a minute and change. Both of your states have legalized recreational marijuana, yet weed remains a Schedule I drug, something former House Speaker John Boehner, now working in the industry, says should change. Rosa and Sarah, in that order, if elected, would you support that?
I would support for it to be removed off Schedule I. It's not as dangerous as heroin, and in fact, most states, except for 4, have passed legislation for medicinal marijuana and cannabis. So that's something that needs to be at the forefront for businesses to actually be able to function. The Federal Reserve needs to be able to accept the money from the cannabis industry.
How about it, Sarah? Washington was one of the first states.
Yes, absolutely. I am 1,000% on board with legalizing marijuana, removing it from the schedule. Treat it like alcohol. There's the Tax Marijuana Like Alcohol Act that's sitting in the House right now. That's an act I want to get behind because our state's been on the forefront of marijuana legislation and leading in the cannabis industry for years. And it's time that we have representatives in office that continue bringing that mantle to Washington, D.C. on the other side of the country.
Well, this is an historic moment for the USA, and we are all watching. I really appreciate your time tonight because I know how busy it is waging the scrappy campaigns you are. Best of luck, Sarah Smith and Roza Calderon, and when you get elected, come visit us here in Washington, won't you?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. We'll walk there.
Yeah, we'll hold hands. We'll go together.
Good luck.
Yes.